SummerSlam weekend, WWE decided to cancel press conferences moving forward. I was there SummerSlam weekend in the press box. Hi, my name is Alex Lajas, and I have been doing wrestling content creations for 7 years, and I have been doing WWE media weekends for 3 years. This SummerSlam weekend was a mess for media, and I'm going to get into why, my experience of SummerSlam, and overall the speculation as to why they canceled the press conference. A little about me. I am a content creator. I am not a journalist. I did not go to school for journalism. I went to school for theater. I never claimed to be a journalist. I don't cosplay as one, although there are some folks in that room that does. However, there are legitimate folks in that room that went to school for broadcasting and journalism, and they know how to tackle that atmosphere. During the press conference, had good moments. My experience doing media was good. My first media weekend was WrestleMania 39, and that was my first one, and I was green into the game. And I learned very quickly that there are people that follow you online and they are cutthroat. It's as simple as that. Everyone has their own agendas when they enter that room, and a lot of people have egos in that room. I'm talking more specifically the junket rooms, a little bit of the press conferences as well. And we've seen how some of the press conferences play out, whether you agree with the format or not, whether you agree that content creators should be in the room or not, whether you agree that hard questions about a lawsuit should be in the press conferences or not. It happened. My experience doing media has always been good, except for this past weekend at SummerSlam. Now, I will emphasize this by saying I understand a billion-dollar company does not owe me, a content creator that has 11K subscribers, 26K Instagram followers. They don't owe me shit. I understand that. However, I do have a platform that is somewhat large enough to speak about my experience SummerSlam weekend because it was messy. Let's start with the junkets. So usually how this is all played out, we as media members, we get approvals for these weekends around a month to 2 weeks before the actual weekend. We get our approvals and we wait for the names that we are supposed to be interviewing for the junkets that usually happens Friday mornings, which is Fridays before the PLEs. We usually receive those names 2 days before the junket or like the week of the junket. I think the earliest we ever got it was Saturday. I think that was the Saturday before WrestleMania. However, for SummerSlam weekend, we did not receive the names that we were interviewing for talent until Friday morning at 7 a.m. when we were supposed to be at the location for the junkets at 9 a.m. Therefore, we were told 2 hours before we were actually supposed to interview people who we were interviewing. I think a lot of us that weekend thought that it was because of canceled flights, which there was a big storm in New York City that week. So I would have understood if that was the case. We are usually given only 3 minutes to interview these people. It's usually around like 2 to 3 questions. Sometimes others push it, and sometimes other people that see others push it get really mad and in their feelings. And it's understandable, right? Because, you have a goal and some people have an agenda to put out, the viral clips, the viral videos, to put out a really good interview with these specific wrestlers, with these specific superstars and these specific talents. However, it was extremely frustrating to receive big names that we were interviewing in that room 2 hours before we were supposed to be in that room, which was Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, which is 2 huge names already. We got Solo Sikoa, I remember we got R-Truth, Braun Breaker, Raquel Rodriguez, Roxanne Perez, Aleister Black, and I might be missing someone else, but I don't remember at the time. But we got these big names. And a lot of us are professionals and we did it off the fly and we did a good job. I will repeat myself in saying I totally understand that this billion-dollar company don't owe us anything. They don't owe the media anything. But this was the beginning of the frustration as a media member within this weekend. And if you think about it, this is their second biggest weekend of the year, especially since this is their first 2-night SummerSlam. So we were kind of under the impression of like, oh, if it has to do with the flights, why didn't they communicate that? Like, why didn't they communicate if it was the flights? This was their biggest weekend, their second biggest weekend. This is their first SummerSlam doing it 2 nights. So why is it set up this way? Because for me, doing media for 3 years, it never really was like that. So it was bizarre in the beginning. But even though it was bizarre and even though there was a lot of frustration going into the room, I do believe that a lot of us did a good job and a lot of us did what we could do the best to our ability with the names that we were giving. I'm proud of what I did. I was very, very stressed beforehand. But I think for me, I just am always stressed going into those weekends, but it was frustrating and it definitely painted the picture of what was going to come. So now let's jump to Saturday, night 1, SummerSlam weekend. We get to the building. We do our credential check-ins. We usually go into the box office area for the media members, give them our IDs. They check our bags. We go into the stadium. We go into the press box. We settle down and we get ready to enjoy the show. These are all my badges. These are all of my credentials from the 3 years that I have done media for WWE. Now, there were 2 different ways that they would inform us as to who was accepted into these press conferences. One way was they would usually email us when we got to the press box or in the middle of the show. And it was an email addressing that you were approved to be at the press conference. And these are the rules as follows. You grab your stuff immediately after the bell rings and you are escorted to the press conference, which is why most of us during Survivor Series in 2023 missed CM Punk's return, because we were immediately escorted to the press conference room. Holy shit.
Punk is here.
Another way that we were told was during our press check-ins with our badges. So this is my badge from WrestleMania 40. As you can see here, Saturday, it says press box in green. This indicated that you were allowed in the press box, but you were also accepted to the press conference. This is my badge for Sunday. This press box only and all in yellow. This means that I was only accepted into the press box and not the press conference. So there were multiple points that they could have informed us that they were canceling the press conference. They did not. During the show, night 1, I believe it was probably when Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill was on, someone that was sitting next to me got a hold from their work Slack that apparently they were not doing press conferences for night 1 or night 2. We were not informed of this during our credential check-ins. They did not inform us of this when we entered the press box, when we saw PR members. They did not send emails to let us know that there was not going to be a press conference. We found out, or at least I found out, through somebody else's work Slack. That was when a lot of media members kind of went around and was asking like, hey, do you have information about the press conference? Do you have any information? That is when I decided to approach someone in media that I knew had a better relationship with PR than I did. And I asked them if they had heard about it and maybe they should talk to someone in PR about it. That person did approach PR and asked if we were having a press conference. It was in that moment of playing telephone was when we found out there was not a press conference. Then that person also asked, did this have to do with anything of Triple H appearing at the White House earlier this week? And that person said no. That person said, the PR member said that the post show just looks better with the fans. That's really all that was told to us. And I think that point moving forward, we all assumed, oh, it definitely has to do something with the White House. It has to do with something with the White House. After that, the morale in the press box was just down. You can feel the air sucked out of that room because a lot of us were used to going to the press conference. A lot of us wanted to be there. We're excited to do all of media, to do the junkets, to have the press conference. A lot of us, that is our only time to have face-to-face time with Triple H. If we had any questions about anything at all, that was our time to ask him. And to be quite frank, there were people that flew in from across the world, from Manchester, flew in just for SummerSlam weekend. There were people that drove 12 hours to come to SummerSlam weekend. And listen, that's the name of the game, right? That's show business for you. Not everything's going to work out for you. Not everything's going to be catered to you. And, you know, some things get canceled last minute and it happens. But the speculation as to why just kept circling around Triple H appearing at the White House. And the air was just ultimately sucked out of the press conference. And I think a lot of people were checked out during the main event, which was Gunther versus CM Punk. And I was really excited to see CM Punk. I was really excited for that match. I was excited to, you know, as anybody else was. But I think with the mixture of the fuckery that happened during the junkets, in which, no, they're never organized. They're really not ever organized. But to receive names of people that we were interviewing, important people, like a lot of us, like this goes on our YouTube channels, this puts bread on the table for us, was just a little unprofessional, a little unfair, but it is what it is, the name of the game, of course. And then to take away the press conferences, a lot of us were just completely checked out at that point. I can only speak for myself, but for night 2, I showed up completely checked out. I didn't know how I felt about being in the press box again. Obviously, listen, I am very grateful to even enter the building for free. Eternally grateful for that. But it just was not a good feeling to be there for night 2. And again, like the vibe of the entire line when we all got there was just like, well, I guess we're here. Like, we have to make the best of it. And some of us did. Some of us really, really did. But then night 2 happened. The finale, Brock Lesnar comes back. And that is the real reason as to why they did not have press conferences that weekend. And it is the real reason why they are not having press conferences moving forward. It's clear that they are trying to avoid media that would possibly push back on the subject of Brock Lesnar. They had a lot to say this week when they signed off their deal with ESPN. But again, Triple H has asked the question about Brock Lesnar on ESPN. He answers it in a way of like, well, that's what the fans want. This is what the fans wanted. You heard how they were in the crowd, which was kind of just bullshit. Like, yes, the fans popped, but sometimes a pop doesn't mean excitement. A pop is shocking. And that's, you know, I don't know. The definition is to the eye of the beholder, I guess. But it just was really messy for Mr. Paul Levesque to show up at the post show as a talking head with everybody else at the desks, the fans behind him, and him saying, see, this is what it's all about. It's the WWE fans, not people sitting in a room asking questions, which you yourself and your company set up that format. You I'm sure got an ego boost every time you entered the room with your tiny ass glasses reading off the numbers and the records for 40 minutes and we clapped for your appearance. But yeah, no, WWE is not about the room of people that cover your show 365. Unlike some of these media outlets like Complex, like Billboard, like it's no shade to those people that work there. I used to work at Complex. It's really no shade to them, but are there going to be outlets now moving forward that is going to push back on this subject of Brock Lesnar returning? Yes, he was cleared by WWE legal, but he is heavily involved and heavily named in this sex trafficking lawsuit with Janelle Grant and Vince McMahon. He is named multiple times. It would have been interesting to see how they would have handled Brock Lesnar and the press conference. It really would have been interesting because a lot of us back at Survivor Series 2023, when CM Punk came back, with the way that they do the press conferences, immediately after the bell rings, after the main event, we are escorted to the press conference. It would have been really interesting to see how that would have all played out because after the main event of night 2, Cena versus Cody, the bell would have rung. We would immediately grab our stuff and head to the press conference. And it probably wouldn't have been until we were in that room, whether they showed it on TV in a monitor, because that's how we saw the CM Punk return, was like on a tiny little monitor on the floor. It would have been interesting to see how they would have played out Brock Lesnar coming out. And would they have like showed it on TV, or was it going to be a thing where one of us was going to see it on Twitter? I think a lot of people's agendas and intentions of questions that they would have asked Triple H would have completely shifted gears. And every single person in that room, once they would have opened the floor to Triple H, everyone's hands would have went up to ask him about Brock Lesnar and his involvement with legal and his involvement with the lawsuit. Just as it was at the Royal Rumble last year, 2024, in Tampa, when the lawsuit originally dropped. Because when the lawsuit originally dropped, a lot of people had questions about it. And when he entered that room and he finished all of his records, everybody's hands went up. Every single media member's hands went up. Now, I will say I was not at the press conference at the Royal Rumble, but I know a lot of people that were there, and I know that a lot of people did say immediately as soon as they opened the floor to Triple H, everybody's hands went up. And I think if your hand is going to go up during a weekend like that, where there is heavy news like that, your hand should be up asking the obvious elephant in the room. It's not a criticism to anything else, but it just seems like it's common sense. Whether you're a content creator, whether you're a journalist, whether you're a broadcaster, it just seems like it makes common sense that you would possibly ask that question. And it would have been interesting to see what Hunter would have answered if a woman had her hand raised and she was picked on and she asked him the question about Brock Lesnar returning. It would have been very interesting to see how he would have answered it. And it probably would have been the exact same way that everyone else has been answering it all week. Did you see Paul Heyman's answer during Ariel Helwani's show? That guy pretty much compared Brock Lesnar's criticism to Jesus Christ getting criticized. Legit. He brought up Jesus Christ, Moses, Bill Clinton, and our current president, and comparing him, all four of those fucking individuals, to Brock Lesnar, and how, well, we can't cancel him. He's here. Didn't you hear the audience? And they're essentially feels like they're blaming the audience. Like, if you're going to ask us so much about Brock Lesnar, you guys should really listen to the pop that the audience was giving him, because really, they wanted him back. That name never came up when it came to the subject of John Cena's retirement run. So I don't know who was really asking him back. And I'm not going to sit here and argue as to innocent until proven guilty, because we all know this fucking legal system is a mess either way. But if we think back to where we were during Speaking Out in 2020, it just seems like Brock Lesnar's return is diminishing the hard work that a lot of people have done over the last 5 years since Speaking Out to protect this industry, to protect this community. So much so where literally the next night or later that night after SummerSlam night 2, a wrestling promotion announced that Joey Ryan was going to return, saved again, and was going to return to wrestling. So it seems like that's the domino effect that is possibly going to take place in wrestling moving forward now that Brock Lesnar is back. And they don't care. I don't think they care about the safety of women. Possibly. I'm not sure. I can't really speak for them, but the way that they are speaking about this subject, it kind of seems that way. And honestly, my editor and I, we had plans for Monday Night Raw since it was in Barclays, it was in Brooklyn. My editor and I wanted to make a video of buying the cheapest ticket to Monday Night Raw. We chose not to do that because I did not feel comfortable doing that. I did not feel safe to do it, to be honest. But I think the question is now, what do we do as fans, as content creators, as people that cover this all across the board? It doesn't matter. Like, for the people that consume WWE, what are we supposed to do now? A lot of us don't really want to see him back, but at the same time, we always say, support the wrestler, not the company. But yet, how far can that actually go? Are we supposed to not buy this new ESPN deal? Are we not supposed to buy it? Is that actually going to directly affect their wallets? No, I don't think so. I think possibly the only way that they would fire Brock Lesnar or let him off, because who knows? It's been reported that this guy has been paid this entire time since he's been off air, off the TV. And yet the countless women that they have released since WrestleMania, and this guy's been on the books since, is kind of crazy. But I think the real question is, what is going to happen now moving forward? I think the only way that WWE is going to listen to us and know specifically that we don't want Brock Lesnar to be back on TV is by the sponsors. Because think about it. Back in 2018, WrestleMania 34, they had a battle royal called the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royal. And all of Twitter protested that. All of Twitter protested that they did not want that because of the history of Fabulous Moolah and past women's wrestlers from back in the day. And Snickers was sponsoring that. And Snickers threatened to pull out. And what did WWE immediately do? They immediately changed the trophy of that battle royal, and they immediately changed the name of that battle royal. Cut to Royal Rumble 2024 in Tampa, when the Janelle Grant lawsuit first came out. Slim Jim, their longest working partnership with that sponsorship of Slim Jim, they threatened to pull out. And immediately they listened and they were like, no, please come back. Please come back. We need your money. We need your sponsorships. That is how WWE is possibly going to listen to us. But how do we put that into effect? Do we at all the sponsors? Because that's literally the only way. Once it directly affects their wallets is when they will listen to us. It's all of the sponsors that are on those turnbuckles, that are painted on that canvas in the ring, the sponsors that are on the tables during the TLC matches, the ladders during the TLC matches, and even the briefcases for the Money in the Banks. Those are the sponsors that if they ever feel threatened, they will possibly pull out of WWE. But right now, I don't think that WWE is going to do anything about it. But we as consumers, what should we do? We as content creators, as journalists, as broadcasters, what can we do? Can we still support the wrestlers and not the company. And think about it. There are wrestlers like that stand on the right side of history, like Rhea Ripley, CM Punk, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, Chelsea Green. Do we still support them? Do we still buy the packages with ESPN? Do we still go to the shows? Do we just go to the meet and greets? Do we just support them and their social media channels? Do we still go to the Monday Night Raws, to the Friday Night SmackDowns, to the house shows, to Survivor Series? Do we do any of that still? I think that's the major question that we need to ask moving forward as wrestling fans.